Was that the all clear, or are we still waiting on the all clear, just to be clear?
I think we're still waiting.
Okay.
This is the bailiff. You guys are good to go, and we are recording. Thank you.
Your Honor, may the plaintiff make appearances before the court?
Your Honor, I believe that you might be muted. Your Honor, I think that you might be muted. We can't quite hear you.
That is correct. Go ahead, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Natalie Manoogian, and I will be representing the plaintiff in today's case, Ethel Marx. I will be joined today by my second chair, Elizabeth Baldwin, who will be assisting with documents and exhibits in today's trial. Would you like the defense to make their appearances before I begin pretrial matters?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Riya Lakkaraju. I'm joined today by my colleague, Miss Sarah DeLacy.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
And Your Honor, together we're going to be representing the defendant, Sunny's Rooftop Bar, and the owner of that bar, Miss Sunny Metha. She's going to be joining us in court today on the defendant's behalf.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Your Honor, as the plaintiff, may we talk about our pretrial matters?
You may.
Your Honor, we'd like to turn your attention to the pretrial order. Ms. Baldwin, if you could pull that up for us. Your Honor, there were several evidentiary issues that have already been pre-ruled upon by Judge Pasquarello. Specifically, item 10 states that Exhibit 1 is an authentic public record pursuant to Rule 803.8. Second, according to item 11, Exhibit 22 is admitted. Now, this is the autopsy report for Jessica Marx. Third, item 13 states that at all times relevant, Sunny Metha and Frankfurt Johnson were acting on behalf of the plaintiff, Sunny's Rooftop Bar. And pursuant to Rule 801 D2A, this makes their statements non-hearsay as they are our agents of party opponent. Ms. Baldwin, you can take that down. Finally, Your Honor, we would like to invoke the Rule 615, the sequestration of all witnesses, barring party representatives. Of course, we have acknowledged that Sunny Metha will be in court today and will be a party representative.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
With that,
Granted.
plaintiff is ready for trial, Your Honor.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Lacey, can we actually see that pretrial order on screen again? Your Honor, we just have one more item we'd like to direct your attention to. Your Honor, we'd just like you to take note of line item 7 here. It just says that once exhibits are admitted into evidence, counsel performing an opening, examination, or closing argument may display those exhibits on screen at any time without actually requesting permission from the court to display those exhibits each time. And Your Honor, we just have one more pretrial matter regarding your preferences for screen sharing. We understand that this line item only applies to exhibits that are already in evidence. So we just want to ask about your preferences for displaying exhibits that haven't been entered yet. Would you like us to ask permission before we display those exhibits for the very first time, or just go ahead and show them? Your Honor, I think we're having a couple issues with your audio. We can't quite hear you.
For the very first time, if they're not admitted, please request permission.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, the defense is ready for trial.
Opening statement from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
You may begin.
Your Honor, members of the jury, they knew the risk. She paid the price. Today, you're going to hear about the death of a 19-year-old woman named Jessica Marx. You'll learn that in March 2019, Jessica traveled from Philadelphia to California for the trip of a lifetime. Instead, her life was accidentally cut short when she drove off the road and into a ravine. This case, it's about a tragedy, but it's more than that. It's about risks that could be completely avoidable. It's about a business that knew those risks. And it's about Jessica, who paid that price. Now that business was Sunny's Rooftop Bar. They're the defendant in today's case. And we represent the plaintiff, Ethel Marx, Jessica Marx's mother. Now, that night, you'll learn that Jessica was traveling to California to visit a close friend, Morgan Levin. You'll hear that they were going to spend their freshman year spring break together. You're going to hear that, like most people their age, they wanted to go out and explore the night scene. They wanted to go to bars. So they decided to go to a bar that a lot of people their age went to, Sunny's Rooftop Bar. You'll hear the defendant and the owner of that bar, Sunny Mehta, knew the proper safety protocols and procedures for running a safe and responsible establishment. You will hear that that defendant knew the risks of serving minors. You'll learn not only that the defendant needed to limit those risks. The defendant needed to check identification both visually and with a scanner. You'll also learn that the defendant, Sunny's Rooftop Bar, and all of its employees, including its owner, knew the risks of over-serving customers. They knew that if you over-served a customer, they could pose a danger not only to themselves, but to others. Now, we as the plaintiff in today's case, we have a burden of proof. We must prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, that the employees of Sunny's Rooftop Bar overserved an obviously intoxicated minor. Today, it doesn't matter whether or not they knew she was a minor. What matters, the only thing that matters, is whether or not Jessica's actions, her speech, her demeanor, the volume of alcohol she ordered, or any other rational observation would lead anyone with the experience of working or running at a bar to know that she was intoxicated. Now, in order to prove that to you, we're going to call forward a witness, Morgan Levin, who was there that night. She came to Sunny's with Jessica. And we're going to have Morgan tell you about those drinks. Morgan's going to tell you that the bartender and the bar owner served the two girls a menu of beverages. They served them wine. They served them beer. They served them whiskey, seltzers, and rum. We expect Morgan to tell you that as the drinks kept flowing, Jessica was intoxicated. She was slurring her words. She was stumbling. We expect Morgan to tell you that the bartender knew that, suggested that she stop drinking, but didn't cut her off. We expect her testimony today to reveal that the defendant not only knew that Jessica was intoxicated, she expressed concern over her driving and poured her another shot anyway. And then you're going to hear about that car crash. Morgan's going to tell you about witnessing Jessica struggle for minutes to make a left turn out of the parking lot. We expect her to tell you that that night she watched her friend almost immediately after leaving Sunny's bar drive off the road and into a ravine. You'll learn today that Jessica Marx did make it. Now, it's for all of those reasons, members of the jury, that we think at the end of today's trial, it will be clear to you Jessica was intoxicated. Not only that, it will be clear to you that anyone who interacted with her would have known that she was obviously intoxicated, particularly professionals in the business of serving alcohol. It's because of those reasons I will stand right before you at the end of today's trial. I'll walk you back through the facts one more time. I will ask you to find Sunny's Rooftop Bar liable for wrongful death. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor, just a moment. May I proceed?
You may.
Your Honor, Ms. Manoogian, members of the jury. Ms. Manoogian just got up here and she told you that on March 24th, 2019, Jessica Marx a young woman. A 19-year-old woman got behind the wheel of her car, and she tragically died in an accident. Members of the jury, all of what Miss Manoogian told you, all of what Miss Manoogian said are things that we know. But this is a case about what we don't know. Members of the jury, this is a case about what the employees at Sunny's rooftop bar did not know on March 24th of 2019. Because they couldn't know what they didn't see. In fact, members of the jury, that's really all this case comes down to. Because while Ms. Manoogian told you about the law, about what the plaintiff had to prove, there's one phrase she mentioned that I really want you to focus in. Obviously intoxicated. Because today the plaintiff had to prove that the defendant served alcohol to Miss Marks when she was obviously intoxicated. See, members of the jury, this case, it's not about how old Miss Marks was or how much Miss Marks drank, but how she acted. Did she appear obviously intoxicated? Because members of the jury, what happened on March 24th, it was many things. But it was far from obvious. Because you'll learn today that it was not obvious that Miss Marks had too much to drink. It wasn't obvious that she couldn't drive. It wasn't obvious to the employees at the bar that she was intoxicated. And members of the jury, that's exactly what we're going to show you today. Because we're going to show you that Miss Marks was not obviously intoxicated. Not on her way to the bar. Not at the bar. And not while she was leaving the bar. Because today you're going to learn that on her way to Sunny's rooftop bar, Miss Marks was sober. You'll hear that her speech, it wasn't slurred. Her eyes, they weren't bloodshot. And she was able to walk normally. And then you're going to learn that throughout the night, not a single employee at Sunny's rooftop bar saw Miss Marks acting intoxicated. They didn't see her stumble. They didn't see her slurring her words. They didn't see that anything was wrong. And finally, members of the jury are going to hear about how Miss Marks was acting when she left the bar. You're going to hear that her best friend thought that Miss Marks was sober enough, well enough, to drive herself home. Because while the plaintiff wants you to think that Sunny's bar knew the risks and Miss Marks paid the price, you're going to learn that the employees at Sunny's bar, they couldn't know what they didn't see. So members of the jury, for the rest of today's trial, I want you to focus on that one phrase I mentioned to you a couple moments ago. Obviously intoxicated. Because we're confident that you're going to see that to the employees at that bar, it wasn't obvious that Miss Marks was intoxicated at all. Because they couldn't know what they didn't see. That's why at the end of today's trial, I'm going to come before you again. And I'm going to ask you to find the defendant not liable. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give our scoring judges just a moment. Are we ready to proceed?
The plaintiff is ready to proceed, Your Honor.
You may call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Morgan Levin to the stand.
Morgan, you've been sworn. You may proceed.
Please introduce yourself to the court.
Hi, my name is Morgan Levin.
Now, let's talk about the case today. Did you know Jessica Marx?
Yes, I did. She was my best friend.
Ms. Baldwin? Your Honor, is it okay for Ms. Baldwin to pull up Exhibit 2?
Yes.
Ms. Baldwin, if you could bring up Exhibit 2 for us. Do you recognize this photo, Morgan?
Yes, that's Jessica.
Now, what was Jessica like?
She was brilliant, energetic, happy.
Ms. Baldwin, you can take down the photo. When did you and Jessica first meet?
We met in middle school, actually, when we were just kids. We were friends ever since then.
And did you guys go to the same college?
No, yeah, we didn't. I went on to study biology. It's what I'm working on now, but we don't go to the same school. We didn't go to the same school.
Did you guys keep in touch while away at college?
Of course, she was my best friend. We used, Instagram, texting, anything.
Did you see each other while you guys were at college?
Not normally. I visited her over a winter break, but we didn't see each other on a day-to-day basis.
Did she have any plans to come and visit you?
Yes, she did. In 2019, I remember she was coming for 1 week in March.
And do you remember what that week was?
Yes, I do. I think it was the 18th to the 25th.
Now, let's turn to the night of the March 24th. When did you guys get together that night?
Well, she was staying at an Airbnb in LA. She was visiting, and I went over there sort of in the early evening, and we had a couple drinks.
And did you stay at the Airbnb that night?
No, I didn't actually. We decided to go out to a bar, Sunny's Rooftop Bar, which was in Malibu, like a short drive away.
Who picked the bar?
I did.
Morgan, you mentioned you were drinking and headed to a bar. I have to ask, how old were you?
I was 19.
How old was Jessica?
19.
If both of you were underage, how were you getting access to alcohol in bars?
Well, she had gotten us fake IDs. We both had one, so that's what we did.
Your Honor, permission to bring up Exhibit 4. This is Jessica Marx's fake ID.
You may.
Ms. Baldwin, if you could bring that up for us. Now, Morgan, what is this?
That's my fake ID.
Do you recognize it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Does it look changed any way to you?
No, it does not.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
It's admitted without objection.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like to pull up Exhibit 3, which is Jessica Marx's identification.
You may.
Ms. Baldwin, if you could pull up Exhibit 3. Thank you. Now, Morgan, what is this?
This is Jessica's ID. This is her ID.
Does it look changed or altered in any way to you?
No, not from what I saw. This is the one that she had.
At this time, we'd like to move Exhibit 3 into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Baldwin, you can bring that down.
It's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Morgan, you said you picked Sonny's. Why did you go there?
Well, I'd sort of heard around town that they didn't quad, and we were just looking for a place to get a drink. I thought it would be fun.
What time did you get to Sonny's?
Probably around 9.
What happened once you got there?
Well, we ordered a couple drinks. It was, the reason we went there.
Who took your order?
The owner of the bar, I think her name was Sunny Mehta.
Who paid for the drinks you ordered?
I did.
Would you recognize a copy of the receipt from that night if I showed it to you?
Probably, yeah.
Your Honor, at this time, we request permission to bring up Exhibit 17.
Granted.
Ms. Baldwin, if you could show us that. Does this look familiar to you, Morgan?
Yeah, this is the receipt I got at the end of that night. Everything I'd ordered at the bar and that me and Jessica had.
Does it look like it's been changed or altered in any way to you?
No, and that's my signature there at the bottom.
Perfect. At this time, we'd like to move Exhibit 17 in evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to hearsay.
Response?
Yes, this is a hearsay exception. It's a regularly conducted business activity. Receipts are something that are automatically generated and kept by the business. So it's an exception to hearsay, Your Honor.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. One of the prongs to meet that exception is that there's some sort of custodian or certification from a custodian of this document before it can be entered into evidence. So even though it might be a record of regularly conducted activity, we still need to see a certification from the custodian of the document before it can be admitted into evidence. So it doesn't satisfy all the prongs of 8036.
Natalie, any thoughts about the custodian?
To my understanding, it's a regularly conducted business activity. It's self-authenticating. We've got Sonny's Rooftop Bar at the bottom. It's a merchant copy. It looks to be the same. And this witness who had it that night can verify it. It's met all the prongs, Your Honor.
Is it self-authenticating? Defense, do you agree?
No, Your Honor, we don't agree that it's self-authenticating. We still need to see a custodian of the document before we can admit it based under 8036. 8036 doesn't mean that all documents under a record of regular business activities are automatically self-authenticating. All the prongs still have to be satisfied. Ms. Manoogian has satisfied 3 of the prongs, but not the 4th, the requirement of the certification from the custodian of the document.
Ms. Manoogian, the document is not admitted. You may
Yes, Your
proceed.
Honor. Now let's talk about what you drank that night. Okay, Morgan?
Sure.
Now, what did you drink specifically?
I remember I had 1 glass of wine and a beer and a shot. I remember what I drank.
Do you remember if Jessica drank the same amount as you or more?
She had more, I remember.
Do you know how many more drinks Jessica had than you?
I couldn't tell you an exact amount. We had a bottle of wine on the table. I know I didn't have that much of it. I'm not sure exactly how much, and the other beers and the liquor and everything else Jessica drank.
Do you know if Jessica drank any drinks that you didn't see her consume?
I have no idea. I know a few times she sort of left the area we were at and she went sort of downstairs to talk to the bartender, but I don't know what she did during that time.
Do you know if she may have gotten a drink from that bartender?
She could have. I don't know.
Now, how was Jessica behaving throughout that night?
Well, she seemed fine when we got there. I didn't notice anything wrong. She looked fine. And then sort of as we kept drinking, she got shakier.
What do you mean she got shakier?
She was slurring her words really loud. Her eyes were bloodshot. I asked her multiple times if she was fine. I thought she was getting worse.
Did you ever see Jessica lose her balance or stumble?
Yes. At around 10 that night, we were coming down the stairs, and I remember she was in front of me and she sort of tripped and almost fell.
Did anyone witness that?
The owner of the bar was there, standing right there.
How did he react?
Miss Maida said that maybe she should cut Jessica off.
Did she?
No,
How long were you at the bar after that stumble?
maybe an hour and a half. That happened at 10. We left, I don't know, 11:40, 11:50.
Did you two plan to leave the bar in the same car?
Yeah, but sort of when we got out there, I didn't think she was okay to drive, so I ordered an Uber.
Why didn't you think she was okay to drive?
She was my best friend and she didn't look good. I was worried about how much she'd had to drink, and I didn't think it was safe for me to be in the car.
We're gonna have to ask, did you try to get Jessica to get in the Uber with you?
Yes, I did. She wouldn't come.
Now, when you got in the Uber, could you see Jessica driving in her car?
Yes, she was right in front of me. I saw her the whole time.
How was she driving?
I remember she went to take the left turn out of the parking lot, and it took her maybe 2 whole minutes. I mean, she was moving so slow.
What happened?
She pulled onto the highway, and she didn't get very far. She drove off to the left, and her car crashed into the ravine.
What did you do?
I couldn't do anything. I got out of the Uber and I called 911, but she was just there. She was just the bottom of the ravine, and she was gone.
Morgan, I know this must be so difficult for you, but I'd like to turn back to the bar. Before you and Jessica left, did anyone from the bar ask you how you were getting home?
Yes. And I remember Jessica telling everybody she was driving home. That was the plan.
Now, did anyone who worked at the bar ask for Jessica's keys?
No,
Did anyone from the bar try to take her keys away?
no,
Did anyone from the bar suggest ordering an Uber?
no one.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. No further questions, Your Honor.
Defense?
Your Honor, just one moment to adjust our text setup here. May I proceed?
You may.
First, Ms. Levin, I'm very sorry for your loss. I'm going to be asking you some questions today, but if you need a moment at any point, just please go ahead and let me know, all right?
I will.
Now, you told us a lot about what happened at Sunny's bar, but I actually want to start off by talking about the bar itself, okay?
Sure.
So let's start with the layout of that bar. Now, you'd agree that that bar, it's pretty big.
No bigger than any other bar in LA.
Well, it has two separate floors, right?
Yeah, there's like a bar area, and then you go up a small flight of stairs, and there's a rooftop.
That's right. There's a bar area on a downstairs floor, right?
Yeah, like I said.
And there's an upstairs floor with a rooftop.
Yeah, but no bar. The bar's just downstairs.
Your Honor, permission to display exhibits 8 and 9.
Granted.
Ma'am, you recognize both of these photos, right?
Yeah, it's like you were saying, the one on the left is downstairs, the one on the right is upstairs.
These photos, they don't look like they've been changed at all.
No, I was there during the night, so it wasn't this bright outside, but the photos haven't been changed from what I've seen.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to enter exhibits 8 and 9 into evidence.
Any objections?
Without objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted without objection.
Ma'am, I want to walk through each of these photos one by one. Now, on the left, you can see the downstairs floor, right?
Yes,
And on the right, that's the upstairs floor.
yeah, the patio.
So let's start with that downstairs floor. Now, you can see that downstairs there's a bar, right?
Yeah,
Ma'am, it's fair to say that a bartender, they spend most of their time at the bar.
generally speaking, I guess.
And upstairs, there's no bar.
No, just chairs and tables.
And most of the time you were upstairs, right?
Yeah, that's true. We had a waitress that came back and forth.
Now, I want to ask you one question, ma'am. At no point did any employees from Sunny's rooftop bar ever come up to you and ask if Miss Marks was drunk, right?
No, I don't think so.
At no point did any of them express concerns to you that she needed to stop drinking.
Except for when Miss Meta said that maybe she would cut her off. No.
Ma'am, that's a no. They never actually cut her off at that bar, right?
Well, no, actually, just she said that she thought she was thinking about it.
And you never felt the need to ask any of the bartenders to cut her off, did you?
No, though I'd been drinking myself.
So, ma'am, that's a no. You never went up to any of the bartenders and said, can you take my friend off the tab? Can you tell her that she's had too much to drink?
No, I didn't realize I had to.
So, ma'am, you didn't do that, did you?
No.
But you did say that you thought Miss Marks was pretty drunk.
Yeah, at some point in the night, not when we got there. Just later.
Actually, ma'am, over the course of the entire night, do you know exactly how much Miss Marks actually drank?
I can't give you a number. I know it was a lot.
So, ma'am, you can't give us a number for how much she actually drank that night.
No, mostly because of the bottle of wine. I'm not exactly sure how many glasses I had versus how many she had.
Ma'am, just to be clear, you're not exactly sure how many glasses or how many drinks she had at all.
No, I mean, other than, the rest of the shots and the beers, no,
That's right, ma'am, you're not sure.
not exactly, no.
I want to talk about something you are sure about, what you saw with your own eyes that night. Because you'd agree that you entered Sunny's bar around 9 p.m. on the 24th, right?
Yeah, that's when we got there.
Now, when you left Miss Marks's hotel for the bar, Miss Marks, she didn't appear intoxicated to you.
No,
She wasn't slurring her speech.
not at that point, no,
Her eyes, they weren't watering at that point.
not then,
She was not stumbling at that point.
no.
Now, when you were leaving the bar, you both went outside to the parking lot, right?
Yeah,
You asked Miss Marks to take an Uber home with you.
I did, but she didn't come with me.
Well, when you asked her to take that Uber home with you, she said she was feeling fine.
Yeah,
In fact, she started walking in a straight line and touching her nose, right?
I mean, it wasn't so straight. It was clear to me she was still kind of drunk, but she did do that.
Well, when she was doing that, you thought she was drunk, but not as drunk as you expected.
Not as drunk as I had expected, no.
In fact, right after Miss Marks did that, you let her get into her car.
She got into her car, yes.
And at that point, while she was getting into her car, you didn't ask anyone at the bar to stay behind with her.
No, I was in the Uber at that point.
Ma'am, that's a no. You didn't ask any employees at the bar to stay behind with your friend.
No,
Before she got into her car, you didn't take her keys away.
no, I didn't.
And you watched her drive home by herself.
I watched her try.
Man, that's a yes.
Sure.
That's all, Your Honor.
There is no redirect, Your Honor. We just ask that this witness be allowed to step down, and that rests the plaintiff's case in chief.
Thank you. The witness is excused with the thanks to the court. Defense, will you call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Miss Sunny Mehta. May we proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Sunny Mehta.
And what do you do for a living, Miss Mehta?
For a while, I used to own a local bar and restaurant in the Los Angeles area. It was called Sunny's Rooftop Bar.
Can you tell the jury just a little bit more about your bar?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a local spot, just a small bar and restaurant I opened up a few years back. I had bought it back in like February of 2017. That place was my pride and joy until I had to sell it recently.
Why'd you have to sell it?
This girl, Jessica Marx, had come into our bar one night. She got in a horrible accident on her way home, and I didn't know it at the time, but she was underage. So we got cited for serving alcohol to a minor. We had to shut down the bar.
And I want to talk about that incident a little bit more. Can you tell us when it happened?
It was March 24th of 2019.
Do you remember what happened that night?
Yeah, that's a night that I will never forget.
Well, let's take that night step by step. How did the evening begin?
Well, as the owner of the bar, it was really my job to just check up on things. I'd sometimes do the jobs that we needed done. I'd wait tables. But that night it was me waiting tables and Frank, one of my bartenders, there at the bar that night. It seemed like it was actually going to be a pretty quiet evening.
Ma'am, you mentioned that you were the owner of the bar. What exactly does that role entail?
Well, besides managing the business, I have two main jobs. I serve customers and I monitor them.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as the owner, I bring drinks and food to people and I take orders on occasion. And that's really so that I can monitor how much customers are drinking and how they're acting.
Why do you do that?
Of course, people getting too drunk at a bar can create hazards, especially for business. Drunk people sometimes get in fights. They sometimes break things. They have accidents. But really, it's the law here in California that we monitor our customers.
What exactly is the law here in California?
As the owner of a bar, I'm required to make sure nobody is obviously intoxicated. That's the phrase that all of the laws use. If they are, I'm not allowed to serve them.
Well, in your experience, how do you know if someone is obviously intoxicated?
Well, anybody who serves alcohol is trained on that sort of thing. We have to take courses called responsible beverage service courses. We have to pass exams before we can even get our liquor license. The course that we take talks about all the signs of obvious intoxication.
And what exactly are those signs?
Well, I have a chart with me. If you'd like to use it, it's something that I use to train my employees on obvious intoxication.
Your Honor, permission to display that chart?
You may.
So, Ms. Mehta, what exactly are we looking at right now?
Sure. Well, this is that chart that I was talking about. It really goes into the signs of obvious intoxication. Like you can see here, it's bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, loss of motor function or balance, those kind of things.
You mentioned that it's your job to identify the signs of obvious intoxication. Ma'am, how many people would you say that you were monitoring on March 24th of 2019?
Well, it must have been around 10 or 15 people. It was a Sunday night, so it wasn't as busy as our other weekend nights.
Were you monitoring Jessica Marx on that night?
Absolutely. I was monitoring her and the friend that she came into the bar with.
So let's start with when she first got to your bar. Do you remember what time she arrived that evening?
Yes, ma'am. That was around 9 p.m.
And how exactly did she appear when she first arrived?
She looked to be completely coherent to me, completely sober when she first showed up.
Were her eyes bloodshot?
No, ma'am, they weren't.
Was her speech slurred?
No, ma'am, I didn't hear that.
Did you see her lose her balance at that point?
I didn't. No, ma'am.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that we placed 3 X's next to the 3 signs of intoxication under the column titled Marx arriving at bar.
It shall reflect.
Now, Ms. Mehta, did you continue to monitor Ms. Marx as the night went on?
Absolutely, that's part of my job.
How often would you say that you saw her?
In total, throughout the night, I'd say 8 or 10 times. I tried to check in about every half hour.
So let's talk about how Ms. Marx was acting while she was at your bar. Did you ever see her eyes become bloodshot?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see her speech start to slur?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Did you ever see her losing her balance?
No.
Your Honor, let the record reflect we placed 3 X's next to the 3 signs of intoxication under the column titled Marx at bar.
It will reflect.
And Mr. Lacey, we can take that timeline down. Thank you. So ma'am, let's move to when Miss Marx left your bar. Do you remember what time she left?
Yes, ma'am. They received their check and they left around 11:45 p.m. that day.
Can you describe how she was acting at that point?
Again, she seemed fine, just normal to me, just like when she walked in. I mean, she looked exactly how she did in that video my lawyer showed me.
Your Honor, permission to display that video? It's Exhibit 6.
You may.
Ma'am, I know you might not be able to see the whole video right now, but from what you can see, do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am, I do. This is the video I was shown before court.
And from what you can see here, does it look like it's been changed since you saw it last?
No, ma'am, it doesn't.
Your Honor, this time defense moves to enter Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted without objection.
Mr. Lacey, can you play this video for us, please?
Hey guys, we're going out tonight for a night on the town. We're going to a rooftop bar in Hollywood. Should be fun. You know, go hard or go home. Not ready to go home.
And Ms. Mehta, you said that when Jessica left the bar, she was acting like she was in that video we just saw. What did you mean by that?
Like I said before, I mean, she was acting like she was in that video. Her speech wasn't slurred. I didn't see that her eyes were red. I didn't smell alcohol on her breath or anything like that. I mean, she looked to be completely in control.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta. Your Honor, we have no further questions at this time.
Thank you.
Cross-examination, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Ms. Mehta, March 24th was not the first time that you served alcohol to a minor.
It's not the first time that our bar did, unfortunately.
I want to show you something and see if you recognize it. Your Honor, permission to bring up Exhibit 1.
You may.
Now, Ms. Mehta, do you recognize this document?
I do, yes.
Is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Does it look like it's been altered or changed in any way?
No, ma'am, it doesn't.
At this time, we'd like to enter Exhibit 1 into evidence, Your Honor.
Any objections?
Yes, Your Honor, this is improper character evidence.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. We are not using this to establish that in the past they served alcohol to the minors, so they were more likely to serve it that day on March 24th. We're using this for 2 things. We're using this for the credibility of the witness. In this document, if I may proffer,
You may.
the defendant, Ms. Mehta, has signed and pled guilty to serving alcohol to minor, part of that pleading guilty is saying that they will use an electronic scanner when checking IDs. Now, it's important for us to question Ms. Mehta of if they actually did conduct that. It goes to the credibility of the witness, whether or not they followed through on actions they swore under oath they were going to do. Today, Ms. Mehta's under oath.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor, my apologies. Your Honor, this is a document, this is a plea agreement for a separate instance where Ms. Mehta's bar served alcohol to an underage minor. This is clearly being used as propensity evidence to show that Ms. Mehta or her bar acted in a reckless manner in the past and acted with a propensity, acted in conformity with a character trait of reckless conduct or a disregard for the safety of these minors. Your Honor, they're clearly using to show negligence on the part of the defendant. This is improper character evidence. If Ms. Manoogian wants to ask about what requirements Ms. Mehta agreed to in this plea deal, she can ask about those without showing the document to the jury, without entering it into evidence, and without introducing the actual nature of the plea deal itself, which does center largely on a prior instance of improper conduct.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Of course.
Now, we can put a limiting instruction. It's already, within the jury instructions that they're supposed to acknowledge these limiting instructions, that we're not using it for propensity evidence. We are using this today for the credibility of the witness. Ms. Mehta is here testifying under oath, and we're establishing that she has under oath signed and said she was going to do something before and has not followed through with that. It goes to the credibility of the witness today of whether or not the jury can trust what she says under oath or when she signs her name.
I do agree that there is a way to get to the essence of your argument about whether she followed through without the admission of the plea agreement. And I authorize you to proceed in that manner, but Exhibit 1 is not admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Mehta, as part of this plea agreement, Sonny's Rooftop Bar agreed that they would use an electronic scanner to check IDs, right?
That's correct.
And those scanners, they didn't always work, right?
That's right. They're definitely not the best technology we had at the bar.
So on March 24th, that scanner was broken, right?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
So you didn't use any type of electronic scanner to check Jessica Marks' ID.
That's right. We had to check them manually that night. Our scanner was broken.
You checked the IDs that night, right?
That's correct. That was our standard business practice, was for me to check them.
So you carded everyone that night.
I did.
Jessica Marks,
Yes, ma'am, I must have.
Morgan Levin.
Yes, ma'am, I must have.
I want to take a look at those IDs you must have checked. Ms. Baldwin, could you bring up Exhibit 3? Do you recognize this, Ms. Mehta?
I know that I was shown this prior to trial. My lawyer showed it to me.
This looks like a fake ID to you, right?
Yes, this definitely does not look like a legitimate ID to me.
It doesn't even look like a good fake ID, right? It looks like a bad one.
That's right. Being in my business as long as I have been, I know how to spot a fake. This is definitely one of them.
So you checked this card that night and served Jessica Marks anyway.
I know that I must have checked her ID that night. I don't know that it was this ID that I checked. I can't imagine that I would have served her alcohol after seeing this ID.
You wouldn't have served her alcohol after seeing this ID because it doesn't have her height on it, right?
That's correct. Like I said, this one is definitely a fake.
And it's admitted into evidence as Jessica Marks's real ID. Would that surprise you?
I have no idea how that stuff works. I just know that what I'm looking at right now is definitely a fake ID.
So you're positive you didn't see this ID that night?
I wouldn't have served her alcohol if I had.
Well, she was served by you, right?
I definitely served her table. Yes.
You went to her table multiple times throughout the night.
Yes, ma'am.
8 to 10 times.
Yes, ma'am. That sounds about right.
Let's talk about what you served them. You served them a bottle of red wine.
I did.
You served them White Claws.
I believe I did. Yes,
You served them beers.
I believe so.
You served them shots.
Yes,
You cleared off mixed drinks from their table.
I did.
You know the alcohol content of all those drinks. It's your job to know that.
Yes, ma'am. I know that.
Now, the training you mentioned earlier, that's to tell if someone's obviously intoxicated, right?
That's correct.
You received that training.
I did.
You understand the importance of that certification.
Absolutely.
It's to keep your patrons safe, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is. I took it really seriously.
It was important that your employees were certified, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you checked all their certifications.
I know that they were all updated on those certifications.
You checked them? You saw them with your own eyes?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that? I think I was having some internet issues.
You checked their certifications with your own eyes.
No, it was part of their job to complete those certifications and stay up to date. They told me they were up to date on them.
And you just took their word for it.
I trust my employees.
Well, you had only one employee working that night, right?
That's correct, our bartender.
You can't tell us if he had that training, can you?
I know what he told me and that he was up to date on all of his certifications.
You never saw Frankfurt Johnson's certification, right?
I never looked at it with my own eyes. I know that he told me he was up to date.
Now, you know it's against California law to serve anyone who's obviously intoxicated. That's part of the training, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, you would say you have never served someone who's obviously intoxicated.
I personally never have done that.
One of the symptoms of that is, red and watery eyes, right?
It is.
Slurred speech,
Yes, ma'am.
and a loss of balance.
Yes, like I was talking about before.
You noticed one of the girls had red eyes on the night of March 24th, didn't you?
I did observe a little bit of that with Morgan Levin.
You noticed that at least one of the girls tripped over her words that night.
Morgan seemed to not be holding her alcohol quite as well.
But you kept bringing drinks to her table.
That's correct. Obviously intoxicated, that's a different standard than somebody just being a little tipsy.
Now, as far as you know, they ordered the same amount, right?
I just know what their table was ordering. I'm not sure who drank what.
So you can't tell us if they were drinking the same amount or if one of them was drinking more or less, right?
That's correct. I didn't see that.
I want to talk about the conversations you had after serving all those drinks. Now, towards the end of the night, you turned to Jessica and said, "This one's not driving," right?
I think that was around 11 p.m. Yes,
You were talking about Morgan.
that's correct.
And Jessica told you, "No way, I'm driving."
I think that's what she said. Yes, ma'am.
At no point did you tell her not to drive.
That's correct. She looked to be completely coherent to me.
You didn't take her keys.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
You didn't call her a cab after you brought that table round and round of drinks.
No, ma'am, it's a bar. I trust that people drink responsibly and get home safe.
But it's your job to check if people are drinking responsibly, right?
Yes, ma'am, and that's exactly what I did on March 24th.
You said she was sober when she left, right?
That's what she looked to be to me.
Right after leaving your bar, she drove clear off the road and into a ravine, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a pretty straight road.
The road that she was on, yes, it was.
And yet you claim she was sober the whole night?
All I can tell you is what I was seeing in my bar, and that was that she was totally in control.
Thank you, Ms. Mehta. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, we don't have any redirect. We just asked that Ms. Mehta be excused.
Ms. Mehta is excused with the thanks of the court. I'll give the judges just a few seconds for scoring, and then we will proceed to closing statement.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's move to closing statements. Please return your camera to speaker view. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the jury, Sonny's rooftop bar knew the risks. But Jessica Marx paid the price. Now, you've heard about a lot of evidence today. And for a moment, I'd like us to just focus on what this case is all about. Jessica Marx. On March 24th, all Jessica wanted was a fun night out with her friend. She had traveled all the way from Philadelphia to California for that week. Now, you heard today that they went out to a bar, and that risks were taken. But those risks were not taken by Jessica. They were taken by Sonny's bar. You heard that despite Jessica being so intoxicated that she fell, the bar didn't stop serving her. You heard that despite her being so obviously intoxicated that she slurred her words, they brought her another round of shots. They kept serving her more and more alcohol, and she kept getting more and more intoxicated until 15 minutes before the bar closed, when they let Jessica Marx walk out of that door, right into her car, and directly into her grave. It's because of the risks taken by Sonny's bar that we as the plaintiff brought forward a claim of wrongful death. Now, we talked about this a bit in the opening, but I'd like to go back over it. What do we need to prove today? We needed to prove that the employees of Sonny's bar served an obviously intoxicated minor. Now, no one in this case disputes that Jessica Marx was a minor. So what matters? It mattered that her actions, her speech, her demeanor, the amount of alcohol she was ordering and drinking that night would lead a reasonable person with similar experience to anyone who worked at Sonny's bar to know she was obviously intoxicated. Now, it's our duty to prove that by a preponderance of the evidence. And it's our duty to prove that that serving of alcohol, that over serving of alcohol, was a substantial factor in Jessica's death. So let's talk about what you heard today. You heard that despite the fact that in the state of California, Sonny's bar needs to use an electronic scanner to check every ID, they didn't do that on March 24th. You heard when I pulled up Jessica Marx's fake ID, Sonny Menace said, "Oh, this is fake. This is a bad fake. I wouldn't have served her with this." But today in court, you heard from Morgan Levin, who under oath swore that this was the ID that Jessica used, that this was the one they used at Sonny's bar. This ID doesn't have weight, it doesn't have height, it doesn't have eye color, it doesn't have any of the typical markers. So what's more likely, that Jessica Marx had a separate hidden fake ID we didn't find, that she didn't show to Sonny Mehta, or that Sonny Mehta didn't check their IDs that night? Because as you heard, if she would have seen these IDs, she wouldn't have served them. But she did serve them. And it's because she served them that Jessica Marx is dead tonight. You have to ask yourself, is it reasonable to believe that Sonny Mehta saw a different ID that night? Now, you heard today that that's not the only mistake, that that's not the only time Sonny's fell short. Now that night, Jessica's best friend, Morgan Levin, she was also there. She was also being served underage. And she took the stand today and she told you about the condition Jessica was in. She told you about her loss of balance when she fell down the stairs. She told you about her slurred speech. She told you about how loudly she was talking. She told you about her red and watery eyes. Those are all the signs of intoxication. You heard Sonny Mehta tell you all of those signs of intoxication. They showed you a little thing saying loss of balance, red eyes, slurred speech. What did you hear under oath today from Morgan Levin? That Jessica Marx had all those signs. What's more reasonable to believe? That the 8 or 10 times that Sonny Mehta came to their table, bringing them drink after drink, clearing drink after drink, that she didn't notice any of these signs? Morgan Levin testified under oath today that Sonny Mehta saw Jessica Marx fall. She saw her stumble, and she remarked, "We should probably stop serving this one." But they didn't. They didn't stop serving her. In fact, they gave her another shot on her way out the door. Now, the defense wants you to believe that there was no way Jessica was intoxicated, that she was sober when she arrived and sober when she left. But you heard Morgan Levin talk about the wine, the beer, the liquor, the rum, all of the different things that she drank that night. Is it reasonable to believe that a young girl would be able to drink all that and look sober when she walked in the door and sober when she left? No. And that's why at the end of today's trial, when I stand back before you one more time, I'm going to ask that you find Sonny's Rooftop Bar guilty, liable for wrongful death. Thank you.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor, just a moment. May I proceed?
You may.
Your Honor, Ms. Manoogian, members of the jury. I want you to focus on one moment of today's trial that, at the time, might have seemed insignificant. But it actually speaks to what this entire case is really about. See, I was up here asking Miss Levin, can you tell us exactly how many drinks Miss Marx had on March 24th? And Miss Levin, she looked at us and she said, I don't know. Members of the jury, I don't know. Because Miss Levin didn't see exactly how much Miss Marx drank. And because she didn't see, she couldn't know how much Miss Marx drank. What she couldn't see, she didn't know. It was true for Miss Levin on the stand today, and it was true for the employees at Sonny's Rooftop Bar in March of 2019. Because they couldn't know what they didn't see. Members of the jury, that's a problem for the plaintiff. Because like I told you at the beginning of today's trial, I want you to focus on just one phrase. Obviously intoxicated. Because the plaintiff couldn't just show you that Miss Marks was a minor. They couldn't just show you that Miss Mark drank at Sonny's rooftop bar. They couldn't just show you that Miss Marks drank a lot of alcohol at that bar. They had to prove that she looked like she was obviously intoxicated at that bar. So members of the jury, if you think that the employees at Sonny's, they didn't see Miss Marks acting too drunk, if you think that they didn't see Miss Marks being obviously intoxicated, then you cannot find them lying. So let's focus on those moments I asked you to think about all the way at the beginning of today's trial. And whether or not Miss Marks was really obviously intoxicated. Think about how Miss Marks appeared on her way to that bar, when she was at the bar, and when she was leaving the bar. Because members of the jury, if you just focus on these moments, you'll see that those employees, they couldn't know what they didn't see. So first, on her way to the bar, because members of the jury, in fact, both witnesses in today's case, they agree on one thing. When Miss Marks arrived at Sonny's, she was not drunk. In fact, we know from Miss Levin, who got in a car and drove with Miss Marks behind the wheel. And we know from Miss Metha, who said that when Miss Marks walked through her bar's doors, her eyes weren't bloodshot. Speech, it wasn't slurred. And she was not stumbling. But ask yourselves, members of the jury, what happened at the bar itself? Well, again, both parties in today's case, we agree. At Sonny's rooftop bar, Miss Marks, she drank alcohol. No one here disputes that. But see, it's not even about how much Miss Marks drank. It's about how she was acting while she was there. And what have we heard about Miss Marks' behavior? Well, Ms. Metha, she told you that it was normal. She told you Miss Marks was acting the same way she was when she entered the bar just a couple of hours before. Again, her eyes, they weren't bloodshot. Her speech, it wasn't slurred. And she wasn't stumbling. So members of the jury, that takes us to what happened when Miss Marks was leaving the bar. Because in opening statements today, Miss Manoogian told you that she was going to prove that to anybody, Miss Marks looked like she was obviously drunk. But members of the jury, what evidence did she really bring you to prove that was true? Because today we heard the exact opposite. Today, Miss Metha told you exactly how Miss Marks looked, how she sounded, how she appeared. It was exactly like this. Miss DeLacy, can we see Exhibit 6?
Hey guys, we're going out tonight for a night on the town. We're going to a rooftop bar in Hollywood. Should be fun. You know, go hard or go home. Not ready to go home.
Members of the jury, Miss Metha told you that when Miss Marks left the bar that night, she seemed coherent. She seemed sober. She seemed fine. And members of the jury, that's exactly what we all just saw right now. But if you're still not convinced, if you still agree with Miss Manoogian, if you still think that this is a case about someone who knew the risks and ignored the consequences, then I want you to think back to what happened right before Miss Marks got in her car on March 24th. Because members of the jury, when you really think someone is too drunk to get behind the wheel, what do? You take their keys away. You call them a cab. You beg them to go home any other way. Members of the jury, what did Miss Levin do? She allowed Miss Marks to get behind the wheel. And why? It's not because Miss Levin is a bad person or a bad friend, but because to her, Miss Marks was not obviously intoxicated. Members of the jury, if it wasn't obvious to Miss Levin, if it wasn't obvious to Miss Marks's best friend, then it certainly was not obvious to the employees at Sonny's rooftop bar. Because members of the jury, they could not know what they didn't see. And because they did not see, because they did not know, we're asking you to find them not liable. Thank you.
Thank you. Plaintiff, any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes.
Now, they just told you that it was the responsibility of a 19-year-old who was being fed shots, wine, beer, and rum to stop another 19-year-old from driving drunk that night. But what's reasonable? Who was actually responsible from stopping those two drunk girls who were being served wine, beer, and shots? Sonny's bar. Now, no matter how sober they want you to believe Jessica Marx was when she left, immediately after she did, she drove right off into a ravine. They knew the risks, she paid the price. Find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn off my camera